Hello and welcome to TED News from Belgrade, Serbia. Today I am with Sergio Quevedo. Hi and welcome.
Well, thank you for having me.
It is a pleasure to have you here with us at EPC, and you have a wealth of experience in church planting. Let's start from the beginning. How did you get started with that?
Well, I started a little bit later in ministry. I did a few other things. It was kind of running away from...
Wait, I want to know.
I wasn't planning on getting into that. Well, I did go to school for theology, but I did a double major in psychology, and I got cold feet towards the end, and I went the psychology route. I worked on a master's in marriage and family therapy, and I did that for about 8 years before the Lord kind of yanked me back.
Come.
So when I came back, I was leaving that career, and I came out of conviction. It wasn't because I had interest in doing anything for myself. It's, I'm making this sacrifice. I'm going to do this for God. I'm not going to play around. So I had a couple of mentors that helped me understand God's mission and God's calling for His people and for leaders. And I understood very early that as pastors, we should be encouraging church planting, if not doing it ourselves. So when I went to seminary, I just read as much as I could about church planting, and I didn't know if I was going to have a church coming out of seminary, but one of these mentors, he told me when I was a little worried, where am I going to go? What if I don't get a call? And he said, well, if you don't get a call to a church, plant one.
Come up with your own church.
Just plant one.
IKEA approach to life. Build it yourself.
Do it yourself, right? So that kind of, that was a seed in my heart. And just very early in my first district, 3 months into my district, I don't recommend. That's one of the don'ts we talked about before the interview. Just if you're a pastor, just get to know your people.
Right.
Wait a year at least.
Don't start by planting a church.
Right. The district that I got to, it was kind of a difficult situation. It was a declining congregations, and I just thought that I don't have a place to bring the friends that I'm making in the community, and I think we need a new church to reach those people who are far from God. And those traditional churches, God uses them as well. We need them as well. We need all kinds. So we just needed one for my friends in my neighborhood and my community because those weren't working. So that's when I started my first core group, basically 2 or 3 months into my first assignment.
Where were you?
In the Boston area.
Yes.
That's the northeast of the United States. It's a very secular area. So I feel your pain in
here
Europe.
in Europe.
Yeah.
Thank you. And so you had a couple of congregations and you started planting a church. How did that go?
It was tough. I was afraid that they weren't going to allow me to do that. So that's another don't. I kind of hid it from them.
Yeah.
You shouldn't do that.
Oh, no.
So I kind of went under the radar and I started working with my core group.
No one is going to find out.
No one is going to find out.
Church.
Yeah. So they were actually hurt that I didn't tell them because they heard for the first time when I was already launching, worship gathering, public worship services. So I was right. They didn't like the idea. But I think I made it worse by not kind of bringing them in and getting some kind of buy-in before I went. So some of the opposition that I got, it was self-inflicted. So I don't blame them. About 6 years into that situation with the district and a few other churches that we planted, we were moving on to our next assignment, and we were able to hug and be okay with each other and have a good relationship with them. But it was tough.
Yeah. Okay. And so after you finished working there, when did you? Because I know at some point you moved to Tokyo.
Right.
When and how did that happen?
So while I was planting churches, I started working with a few people. Someone that's in your division, Anthony Wagner-Smith, as well, and others, and a residency for church planters. So the goal is to help church planters from beginning to end with different training modules that would take several days, and in between these training modules we would coach these church planters to make sure that they're successful, like one-on-one attention. And we started doing that in many different places. We started helping out. And my conference saw that I was doing that in other places outside our conference. And they're like, why don't you do that here? So they invited me to coordinate church planting in my conference. So I did that for a couple of years until the Tokyo opportunity appeared.
How do you decide? I mean, I travel a lot and I enjoy it, but moving to Tokyo sounds big. How did you make that decision? What was it culture-wise? I mean, I know you have a South American background as I do, and I know, getting used to Europe was already a step, but what was that like?
That was tough.
Yeah.
Because initially I was the only one who wanted to go.
Oh, I see.
So as much as I try to convince, I think I make some good points, but it's just not working. The kids were okay with the idea, but my wife wasn't too excited about it, and I just got to the point that I was like, you know what, Lord, you convince me. You convince her, because
I'm not the Holy Spirit. You do the work.
I will not drag this woman to Tokyo.
To Tokyo. No, that's a don't.
Yes, that's a don't. Yeah, and I didn't do that. So after a couple of weeks, I actually said no to the call. And after a couple of weeks, she, in her own devotion, in her own conversations with God, she took the initiative and said, "I think God is calling us to go there." So we went. It's a big change. The first year we were there. First 10 months, we were focused on language learning and culture learning as well, and just trying to figure things out.
The basics.
It makes you very humble, not being able to do basic things because of the language. So
yes, because all of a sudden you're like a kid again, needing help to buy stuff, to find your way around.
That's right. So we're very grateful to the General Conference because they invested in us learning the language, even though they knew we weren't going to need Japanese to train to do our work, because for us to train in Japanese, that would be probably 5-7 years of full-time language learning.
Yeah.
But they knew that would have been important for us to be able to survive and not go into this downward
not being
spiral
isolated.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just not. Sometimes it's the Amazon guy outside just trying to find your address, and you have no idea what he's saying on the phone.
Yeah.
So just doing some basic things, taking care of bills and just basic life. That's very important for a missionary.
Yeah. So you got there and you started training people on how to. And you went there knowing this was God's call for you. Was it easy? Was it good? How did that go?
It was very exciting in the beginning.
Yeah.
But when we started working with the Japanese leaders, some of the local leaders helped us recruit people who were interested in mission. We talked with them about church planting and what we were doing, and we thought they understood what we were saying. But the thing is, all of those people, they're in Tokyo, and the last church that was planted in Tokyo was decades ago. So they've never seen a church plant. So here we are talking about planting churches, and they don't know what that is. It's a new concept for them. So we start the training, residency and coaching and everything, and they're very positive, they're excited. But then month after month, we're checking in and nothing's happening. They're not recruiting a team of leaders to plant with them. That was kind of the first step that we were helping them with. That's how we do it in the West. We recruit a team of leaders and then we go from there. 10 months into it, no one is doing anything.
Wow, then I'll be a bit frustrated / impatient.
We're like, we moved here, uprooted our lives for this, and it's not working. It's not working, you know. So finally we resorted to prayer.
Finally, we thought, what can we do?
Finally, we resorted to prayer.
Yeah.
And I'm going to share this tomorrow on the main stage. What happened there? God gave us an opportunity to understand the Japanese mindset, and not only the Japanese mindset. It's really the secular mindset. A Japanese or a secular person, they will not commit to doing anything they haven't experienced before.
Right.
So we're asking them to start a new church, to recruit people, and they've never done that before. They've never experienced that before. So they won't commit to doing it. They won't do it until they actually get their feet wet. They have some experience in that. They experience that for themselves. And then a commitment should rise out of that experience.
But there's a bit of a vicious cycle, because
Yeah.
if I don't have experience until I
Right.
start, I never have experience and I never
Right.
start.
So what we did, we started bringing them into our lives. We started hanging out with them.
Yeah.
We showed them what it means to create a community.
You were modeling.
Yeah, we're modeling. So game nights or worship gatherings, informal,
Wow.
with them, in a very powerful and intimate way.
Yeah.
And they're like, what? I want this for my friends will dig this.
Yeah.
So when they experienced a true Christian fellowship, they're
This
like,
has so many layers
Yeah.
of meaning, like not just
Right.
for training, right?
Right.
It wasn't intellectual knowledge. It's when
Right.
they experienced, when they
They
tasted,
experienced,
when it was embodied.
right. It's the come and see kind of concept, which is
Yeah.
not new.
Yeah.
So as they did that, they're like, I think I can do this. I
Yeah.
want this. So the commitment came out of their personal experience. With the thing,
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So this is 10 months into it. You get this realization
Yeah.
through prayer, and then things start to change.
Right. So by that time, we're almost done with that first group. We're coming to the end of the
The
series
training,
of the
yeah.
residency, and no one's done anything. And we're like, guys, I think we've found the silver bullet.
Yeah.
We found a way. And when we explain that to them, we're going to bring you into our lives. We're going to allow you to come in and worship with us and
We're
serve
going to do the
with
Jesus
us.
thing.
Yeah, you're going to come and see.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, we'll try. So from that first group, we were able to salvage a few of those church
Yeah.
planters. They went on and they planted. But the second batch, the second class that we had the following year, we started that way. And by God's grace, all of them planted.
Wow.
Because we provided an experience. And then the people that they want to invite to their church, they're not asking for a commitment up front. They're also trying to invite them into their lives first.
Yeah.
No commitment.
Yeah.
And do that in a consistent,
Yeah.
regular basis to the point that people are able to come to a commitment, on their own, at their own pace,
Yeah.
with the help of the Holy Spirit. So that kind of eliminates the hurry, everyone
The
committing at the
pressure.
same time, and that's us doing. We open the door for the Holy Spirit to work in them, and the Holy Spirit is good at His job.
Yeah.
He's competent. So
So what happened? How many churches were planted? What is it looking like at the moment after a decade of nothing?
right. So they planted about 11 churches
Wow.
in the city of Tokyo. So these churches, they look different from a traditional church.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of space, very expensive to rent, so it's mostly houses. We do have a couple of those churches that they rent. They have access to a larger room so they can have more people. But a lot of it is done in the home. And they do worship,
Yeah.
but throughout the week, different nights, they have different things. So the home is kind of a station where people come in and they create community around these values, these common interests, and they cross-pollinate these groups eventually as well. So it's very exciting to see what's happening.
That sounds amazing. So there'll be someone watching this conversation thinking, I have this feeling in my tummy that I am meant to be a church planter and I don't know where to start, what to do. What would you say to that person?
What I would say is make sure that you just, as Ellen White says, just get thick with the Almighty. You need to hear from God. It's not easy work. So what I would say, the first thing is make sure that you work on your devotional life, that you have that spiritual vitality happening. The second thing I would say is talk to your family. Make sure they're on board. There's no single church planter. It's a family endeavor. So if you're married, make sure that everyone is on board, and until they're on board, don't do it. So those are the two things that come to mind.
Yeah.
What I would say is, third, is go look for someone to disciple. Actually ask for God to send someone to you for you to disciple, because there's no commandment to plant churches. The commandment is to make disciples. So church planting is a byproduct of disciple making. So if you want a initial group, let's say your initial group, you want to inspire them to make disciples, right? Your leaders, you want to have leaders that make disciples. That's going to be the DNA of your church. Well, you as a leader, you need to have some disciples that you have already made or that you're making, right? You need to share some of your own stories. It's okay to share other people's stories, but you got to have some of your
own journey. Yeah.
So you lead by example in that way. So church planting is a way to organize the disciples that we're making.
Yeah.
So there's no commitment to plant churches, but that's really the result of faithful disciple making.
Yeah. One last question for you. How has this experience changed you?
Okay, so
choose one aspect, because I know, but I find that the journey of walking with God in obedience, in addition to have, and perhaps even more importantly than having impact on others, it has a deep impact on us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's the hardest journey that I've had to go through. Sometimes it's the most, the worst. Mm-hmm. It feels like it's the worst, you know, but it's the best. I don't know if that makes sense. Like in Japan, people ask me, how was it? I was like, that was the best and the worst at the same time. It was terrible,
and it was great.
It's so intense. Do you know what I mean? So church planting is very intense because you're going up against the forces of darkness. Mm-hmm. The enemy doesn't want that to happen. So you can be sure that you're going to have opposition. Well, I did have opposition. I invited some of that opposition on my own. But even if you do everything right, just be ready for a difficult journey. But I got to tell you, it's not boring, you know, and it's very rewarding. Some of my best friends that I have today, I've met through doing that. But you know, just one last thought that just came to my mind: even the most difficult things, even the heartbreaks, the things that don't work. There was one church that I planted that I closed, you know, and it's very hard. So those lessons are so precious, you know. You carry leadership principles from your failures. That I'm a church pastor now again, and I'm a church planter again. I carry those things with me, and the lessons that I know today, the lessons that I'm using every day, most of them came from messing up and from my failures and from the difficult times that I had while doing this work.
Wow. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
This has been a very interesting conversation, and God bless you in your journey.
Thank you.